All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of UX Pathways, and I have the honor of being joined by Mr. Todd Bertsch. Todd, how are you?
I'm doing great, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you here. This is our kickoff of our season four, and this year we're talking about adapting to change. And I know with Evolve and everything that you've done in your career, that seems to be like the epicenter. But I would love for everybody out there that doesn't know your impressive career, could you just describe in maybe a brief way your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it have to go back to kind of my trade, which is graphic design. So I went through the University of Akron, the BFA program. So I am a traditional graphic designer, which I think is important for this story. And as I was graduating, and this is going to date me, you and I go back a ways, right? Not only as friends, but also in our careers in terms of the internet. But as I was graduating, the internet was just starting to happen.
Mhm.
Um, and I started to build my first website my senior year in school. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it, man. I love the interaction. And yes, there's something to be said about print and all that and branding, but there was nothing like building a site. So PageMill, Adobe PageMill, if anybody can remember that guy, that was my first site. And then I just fell in love. I fell in love with website design development, and that's what I focused on. I got on that train and I never got off. And as I went throughout my career, I've built, I don't know, over 100 websites. And then you and I connected at insurance.com. And that was an incredible experience for me in many of ways. But for brevity in this story, that's where I learned about usability. So through you and through our mutual friend, Kathleen Zapata, the usability guru, once we started to bring in participants and watching them actually use our website that we helped design and our developers built this crazy application. Um, it was amazing to me that we could make decisions based on what the users were doing, right? So it's one thing to build something and make some assumptions. And yeah, there was Google Analytics or whatever it was called back in the day, and you could see some very static charts and graphs, but there was nothing that really showed you what the user was physically doing. So to bring somebody in, ask them a series of 10 questions, and then watch them go through, it was just like a light bulb went off, and I said, "Wow, this is pretty cool." And that was my first stab into UX or usability was just learning about how people behave and how they go through certain applications.
It's
So,
an important step. I mean, I talk about all the time that aha moment. Everybody has one. And
mhm.
what is it? But I know you're going to continue, but I was wondering for the audience, could you explain what your current role in the industry is?
Yeah, so from there, then I actually went on in 2009 and I started my own business, Evolve Marketing. So yes, there's the evolve, there be the change, right? Evolution. And that was based on my background, my skills, which was web design development. And then we've kind of bolted on digital marketing, SEO, pay-per-click, social, and all those things. But that's kind of what we did. And so we just celebrated 16 years this year.
Congrats.
But thank you. But what I'm really proud of and what was well, actually, I'll bring out the original tagline. So the original company name was Evolve Creative Group, but the tagline was Revolutionary Web Solutions. So it wasn't building a website, it was building a solution. And in my mind, a solution meant there was a problem. So we were solving user problems, and it was always UI, UX centered. Everything that we did, and we did great design, but we weren't necessarily focused on winning Addy Awards. We were focused on delivering a product that the users, albeit our customers, their clients, could actually use, right? And when you create a good product, then the results show for themselves, right? If you make it easy, and we'll get into that in a minute. But so anyhow,
Hmm.
yeah. So I
Hmm.
started to evolve and continued on kind of this UI UX focus. And we actually did usability testing and studies. In fact, we built a website. One of my first clients is Metro RTA, so the regional transit authority in our area in Akron. Um, and so we rebuilt their website. Well, what was interesting was this website wasn't just any old website. This website was a practical tool that their customers, their clients needed. It was a means of life for them. So we had to really take it up to the next level. And I'm really grateful and blessed to have had that usability experience because we said, look, we can make assumptions all day about what these people want and what's really most important to them is they're standing out in the rain at the bus stop, right? So we got them. We pitched it and we got them to buy into it. And then we brought in, I think, six different usability participants, different ages, different genders, different ethnicities to really get a nice mix. And we learned a lot. So we went into the redesign with no assumptions. We asked, the people told us, and we delivered. And it was a great process and a great product in the end. But that was kind of one of those moments like, you know, not everything is just a marketing piece, a marketing website. This was an actual tool that people needed to get from point A to point B. So anyhow, so that was a lot of fun. And then most recently, I made a pivot, kind of slowly stepping out of Evolve marketing into keynote speaking, mental fitness coaching, and my podcast, the Bolt podcast, and some corporate training. So yeah, so change has always been kind of at the core of who I am and what I've done in my life, and I think it's incredibly important to embrace change.
Yeah, it's inspirational. And what's interesting is there's so much in there to unpack. But what's fascinating is that from your core, you started, you had some foundational training, you learned along the way. And then from that, it inspired you to further educate yourself. And some of the examples you brought up are interesting. UX can be defined many different ways. And with your start of a graphic designer and then moving into it, you have a very specific way that you think about it. But it's not to be cheesy, it evolved over the years.
Hmm.
How do you define it? You started touching on it a little bit, but since that first aha moment, how do you define user experience?
Very simple. Very simple. This is it right here.
Don't
This
make me
this
think.
Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 2000 is when this book was created.
Wow.
That book changed my mindset.
Hmm.
And so I'll come back to one method, which is called KISS. You know this.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it simple, stupid. Don't make me think. Keep it simple, stupid, right? So if an element needs a label, put a freaking label on it. Don't make me have to figure it out. I'm not uh, an anthropologist trying to go through the website, picking up rocks and buttons and layers and trying to figure this out. There is a goal here. We're trying to get a user to go down a flow. So make it easy. So really that's what it comes down to is just simple and easy, the KISS method. And if your listeners don't have this book, highly recommend it. Steve Krug, Don't Make Me Think, common sense approach to web usability.
It's one
I
of my
mean,
favorites.
and that's it, man. I mean and here's the thing, like, and this is one of the challenges that I faced as a graphic designer, and I still see it in the industry today, and maybe you do too. You have graphic designers who have this skill set and they're trained a certain way. And when you and I were coming up, there wasn't even a web development class, right? We learned all this on our own. There was no UI, UX. Um, we were just figuring our way through things and building probably some crappy experiences along the way. But you have designers who come in and they're very focused on the visual aspect and they lose. It's very easy for a graphic designer to get lost in that mode and forget about what the ultimate goal is. Forget about the user, right? Because they don't want it to design a visual element that's too obvious, right? We're always trying to make it visually interesting. And there is a balance there. And I think the really good designers have that UX hat and they can balance that. They can deliver a beautiful design from a marketing standpoint, from a visual standpoint, but also make it easy to use, right? And get people down
Mhm.
a path, down a flow. So that's kind of one of the biggest challenges that I've seen over the years. And we've had it with our designers internally, and I'll have debates. Do we have a link that says back to homepage? We had that discussion for 20 years. Well, everybody knows the logo will take you back there. Do they? Ask the 60 to 75-year-olds. They don't know. So anyhow, that I don't want to get caught up in
No, it makes sense though. I mean,
but
that's a great book and it's a great reference.
yeah. So anyhow, so that's what I would say, is that just keep it simple,
I mean, it still holds true. It's,
right?
it's like you said, 25 years later, and there's so many things out there that you can apply that to. And that's why I thought it was interesting. You talked about earlier that you started your career, you started your group, and now you're doing some consulting. How have you changed over the years? And how does this apply to your current position? I know that you said you're moving into more public speaking, but do you have a philosophy when it comes to change?
Oh, yeah, that's what I speak about. That is my speaking topic is my whole mission is to help people embrace change
Embrace
and
it.
embrace change, embrace resilience, and see it as an opportunity. That's the real trick is to see it as an opportunity because if you don't, right, it's all in our mindset. If we cannot change our mindset to see it as an opportunity, then we're gonna be miserable. Change is inevitable. It's happening, and we are now in change disruption as as a community, as a work environment. So much change every single day, right? Regardless of how small or large your company is or your team is. So you need to get on board, man. Change is happening. Change can be beautiful. Change can be transformational, but it's all in how you see it. It's all in your mindset. And when you see it as an opportunity and you look at it through that lens, as you know, Mark, it's it's beautiful, right? You can accomplish anything. So that's how I don't know that I've always seen it like that. Obviously, I've done a lot of work and this is, what I coach and I've been through mental fitness programs to help me get there, but we have to embrace it. And that's just how I've been, approached my life. So that's kind of where I'm at.
It's a mindset, and I've seen it working with you and talking with you. I know that it's all about what you do. But you mentioned it's being disruptive out there in the workplace. Is there some current hype out there that shouldn't be ignored right now that we should be thinking about?
I don't know. Yeah, I saw that question. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm not knee deep in UX right now.
Hmm.
But here's what I'll say about just hype in general.
Yes.
I don't think hype should be ignored per se, right? I would just recommend that people be cautious, but still curious. One of the worst things that we can do, and I
Mm.
see this time and
Mm.
time again, especially as we get older and we get into our third, fourth, maybe fifth jobs, we start to get complacent and we get in a fixed mindset and we lose our curiosity. And that's one of the things I've always loved about you, Mark. You're curious George. You are one of the most curious people I know. And that's kept you being a lifelong learner, as we've talked about. But just be cautious. Don't get caught up in the shiny object syndrome, right? AI. If I hear AI one more time, I swear. Just do your due diligence.
Hmm.
Try, experiment, test, tweak, which is kind of usability in UX, right? So, yeah, don't ignore it. Is there anything per se? I don't know. ChatGPT, I use it, but I use it in the right way, I feel
Hmm.
like, generating ideas, but it's not doing the writing for me. It's not creating my designs or my graphics. How is it affecting UX? I'm sure it's going to have some impact, but it might actually be, a great tool. I don't know. But yeah, so I would just say, per what was it, Flavor Flav, what he say?
What
Don't
time is
believe,
it?
don't believe the hype, right? Wasn't that it? Don't believe the
That was
hype.
it. That was it. But
So
I just see the clock around his neck, so
yeah,
that's immediately where I go. I can't get that out of my mind. No,
yeah,
that's good advice, and that leads me into my final question for you.
yeah.
Is this podcast is all about career and
Mhm.
pushing things forward? Do you have any advice for people looking to make a career change or follow a path like yours?
Oh, I got all kinds of advice, Mark. You know that. No, no, great question. Here's what I do, Mark. So I ask people, if I'm going to have breakfast with them or lunch. I say, what gets you up in the morning?
Hmm.
What lights your fire, man? What gets you excited?
Mm-hmm.
Go do that. Can you make a career out of that? Right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about being happy. And yeah, money is important and we need it to a certain degree to live. But as you get into your career, as you spend time and you get older and wiser, you realize that money isn't necessarily the most important thing. You spend more time working than anything else in life. So if you can, and I know not everybody can, there's been points in my life where I've had to just do what I needed to do to feed my family, right? And serve my people. But if you can find something that you love to do, embrace it, really enjoy it. Find that happiness, that bliss like you have. And if you're not happy at work, then find something on the side. You've been doing your DJing for 30 plus years. That I know that lights your spark. And that's smart for you to keep doing that, right? Because you know you need that in your life. So always just try to find something that makes you happy because this time that we have, it's the one non-renewable resource that we can't get back. So that's my advice is just try to
Great
find
advice.
what you love to do. And if you can make a career out of it, that is absolutely amazing.
Well, the words of motivation, perfect way to kick off the fourth season. And where can people find more out about what you're doing?
Yeah, you can go to evolvemarketingteam.com if you want to learn more about my agency or more about me and my coaching and my keynote speaking. You can go to toddbertsch.com. That's BERTSCH.com.
We'll have all the details up there for everybody to check out. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and kicking everything off for us this year.
Thanks, man. It's been a true pleasure. I love you, brother.
Back at you. Thank you, Todd.